I am firmly convinced that the problems we face, all the problems humanity faces now, are global in nature. In other words, if the ozone layer is disappearing, it's disappearing for everybody, not just for Americans or just for Egyptians. And there's no way in which we're ever going to solve these problems all by ourselves. No nation can do it by itself. The only way a sensible attack on these problems can be made is by international cooperation, a global effort. I'm against not only war, but I'm against the fact that the world spends $500 billion every year just preparing for wars which they don't dare fight. And that $500 billion that goes into weapons of war, into standing armies, into all kinds of chazarai, can't be used for anything else, and isn't. So that we're short on dough for things to combat acid rain, for instance. We can't figure out what to do about a host of problems because we're spending not only all our money, but all our effort and all our emotion on this useless thing of nation versus nation, which maybe destroy us all. Well, what stands in the way of us attacking these things in a global sense? Mostly irrational feelings about I'm better than you are. Each nation suspects its neighbors. There's a kind of awareness of enormous differences that don't really exist. There is this foolishness, which I can only think of as foolishness, that as the whole world is sliding into the abyss, people are ignoring that fact and fighting with each other. Who cares who's going to win when everyone's going to lose? So that we have irrationality keeping us from really attempting to tackle the problem.
You want us to do something that it would seem this century has demonstrated we're not capable of doing.
We can do it if we really want to, because we have done it in the past and we are in the process of doing it. All through the world today, you see cooperation because people have no choice. You see, right now there's going to be an economic summit. Every year the 7 industrial nations meet at an economic summit. What they accomplish, I don't know, but there's the feeling they have to get together and talk. We cooperate with questions of the oceans. We cooperate on weather. It's amazing how much the United States and the Soviet Union, how much information they pass each other on space for their own good. Nobody's doing this for the good of anyone else. They're doing this for their own good. And this is going to increase. People are going to realize increasingly that they're going to have to be nice to each other, not because the Bible says so, not because niceness is nice, but only because the other way there is death.
If we are going to be interested in and involved with human beings, then I fail to see anything in the name that distinguishes between one set of human beings and another set. We are all human beings. If there's one thing that is biologically certain about the human species, is that it is a human species, one species. The similarities among us are enormous. The differences are trivial. And when we think of what human beings have done to each other on the grounds of such trivial reasons, we have to shudder at history and think that it is criminal for all of Earth now, not to be humanists, because now, when all human beings are facing the same problems, and in order to solve these problems, in order to make sure not just that our progeny will be prosperous, that our progeny will be peaceful, but that our progeny will live to go to the solution of these problems, we cannot expect that this will be done by individual nations. It was possible for a single nation to believe it could make itself prosperous without reference to the rest of the world. That if it had a war, and if it was a quick war, it could recompense itself for all damages. It is no longer possible to have a war in which the damage done is not far greater than any nation can afford. in which it is even possible or conceivable that one nation may win if the world as a whole loses. We have become so small. The world has become so fragile. Our weapons have become so powerful that we cannot use those weapons any longer, that we cannot subject the earth to the tortures we can now inflict upon it. The only way we can solve a problem is by a human solution, a totally human solution, an international solution, a cooperative solution. It is important that the world get together and be sufficiently a unit to face the problems which attack us as a unit. The problems with the ocean, with the atmosphere, with the soil, with pollution, with anything you want to aim, do not distinguish among us. How then can we distinguish among ourselves? There must be some way of getting together.